The other day I posted this poll, asking people if they were enjoying Starfield. The reason I posted this was because I noticed that about half of the comments I was getting about the game were negative. This was despite the fact it's reviewed well, and I personally think it's a good game overall. As such, I was a bit surprised, so I checked with the poll to see what was going on, and from the results, we can see that only a very small percentage of people are saying they outright don't like the game, with the vast majority either having not played it or enjoyed their time with it. And the reason for this? Well, in short, my buddy Jay managed to sum it up quite well when I asked about this on Twitter. They said, "I think people are very quick to comment on things they don't like, and often don't mention things they do like." And if you're looking for the short version of this video, then that is it. Starfield is a very well-liked game by most of the people who have played it, but the people who don't like it are the ones talking about it the most, while those having a good time are just playing the game, having fun, and don't really feel the need to talk about it all that much. And you know what? I'm guilty of this. Rather than making a video focused about all of the things I love about Starfield, I chose to make this video, talking about how there's a minority of people out there who don't like the game. That's negative bias in full effect. Rather than focus on the half of the comments which were neutral or positive, I couldn't help but focus on the negative half. And so, with this video, I'm going to be trying to dispel or clarify some of the negativity surrounding the game. I'm planning on making this one video where I talk about all the common bad points I've heard getting brought up, discuss how valid they are, and then once I'm done with this video, I plan on posting more positive focus videos going forward. I want to be someone whose channel you go to for a good time, making content that you enjoy, not harping on about how bad things are, because there's more than enough of that out there already. After I'm done with this video, I'll be doing a fun little let's play, which looks like it will be as the fighter pilot. I've also already started a live stream playthrough of the game, and I'd also like to do some more builds, and guides, and other videos which you can actually enjoy watching. But first, we need to get this video done and out of the way, so that I can say what needs to be said and move on. For my own sake, more than anything else. I've decided to split the negative views towards the game into two different sections, valid and invalid. Essentially, do I think this is something you should actually consider, or is just something that's being talked about to be negative for negativity's sake? And let's start with the valid points, as they have the most value. First is going to be the confusion around certain mechanics and the overall learning curve. While plenty of things will be familiar to those of us who have played Bethesda games before, there are new things going on with this game that take time to be learned and understood. I feel the big two here are spaceships and outposts. With spaceships, there's a few different factors. First is the actual flying around itself, which does get tutorialised towards the start of the game. This teaches you the basics, but I found it took me quite a few hours of just flying around and having space battles to really get used to flight. But now, I love it. It's great to be able to blast apart other ships, dodge between asteroids, and explore the vastness of the universe. The ship controls work really well, but they do require practice to actually enjoy. And I'd say it's a very similar thing with the shipbuilding process. This is one I'm still getting to grips with myself, but the more time I've spent in the shipbuilder, the easier it's become to use. Unlike flight though, there's less of a tutorial here, so you do have to figure some things out for yourself. Fortunately, you don't ever need to do manual shipbuilding if you don't want to, as you can just buy new ships, capture them, have them as rewards for some missions, or even use the upgrade option as a more straightforward shipbuilder tool. Shipbuilding is one of the coolest things in the game, but it does take time to get to grips with it, which can be frustrating. And now we talk about outposts, and this is the one which I'm still in the early stages of understanding, and am not enjoying all that much. Outposts are difficult to set up effectively. You need to get a bunch of resources, work out what it is you need to build, find the right part of the right planet to build on, and then play around with things till it actually works out. This is a system that I think will be easier to deal with over time. I've already gone from just grabbing every resource I see, to pre-planning and tagging the elements I actually require, gathering them, and then returning. Outposts are a real process, and while I have seen some people genuinely enjoying them, I do feel like I've seen far more people just getting frustrated. My advice here is to wait on outposts. They aren't needed for 99% of the game. They're very much an optional feature, so if you're really struggling with them and not having fun building them, take a break. I know that Kado Genesis is currently working on a comprehensive outpost guide, and I've essentially stopped working on my own outpost character until that's done, as I could do with a helping hand, and Kado makes great guides. Once Kado's explained it to me, I'll have another crack at it and things will go better, as I'll be more well informed. With all this learning curve stuff in the game, I've also heard people complain about the slow start, and there is some truth to this. The start of the game overall is a bit slow, as there's a couple of missions you have to do, and it's not until you reach the lodge in New Atlantis that you're actually free to go off and do your own thing. This has been put in place as a sort of extended tutorial section, something which Constellation actually continues to do if you progress with their missions, which is helpful when you're new to the game, but does also slow things down. The more you've played of the game, the quicker you'll be able to get through the opening sections on replete playthroughs, because you won't be doing the stumbling around that we were all doing first time. You'll know where to go, what to do, what to loot, and so on. But it'll always be a tad on the slow side, as you do have to tick some boxes before the game actually opens up. Next thing I want to talk about is price. If you can't justify the purchase of this game, then it is totally valid to not be playing it. Games are expensive, and if you're not sure about one, then I recommend not purchasing at launch. Starfield will go on sale at some point. I'd imagine maybe in a couple of months or so we'll see the first minor sale price of it, and in years to come the price will drop noticeably, I'm sure. And if you want to test out the game now, but aren't sure you want to fully commit, then you can get a month of Game Pass at a much lower price than a full game would cost. It should provide you plenty of time to play the game, and if you don't end up liking it, then there's a bunch of other great games you can try out so that it doesn't feel like you've wasted your money. A few personal recommendations of my own would be Citizen Sleeper, Deathloop, and Chained Echoes. All of these are great games with a sci-fi edge to them. Chained Echoes in particular is one of my favourite games of all time, blending together fantasy and sci-fi in such a beautiful way. I love it so much that I bring it up any chance I get. It is that great. But as well as those few recommendations, there's a whole series of games on Game Pass, from The Elder Scrolls and Fallout, to Mass Effect, Wolfenstein, and Yakuza. I think that Game Pass might be the safest way to dip your toe into the game and see if it's worth your money, because even if you end up not liking it, there's plenty of other games on there which you will enjoy playing. The next negative opinion I've seen is that the game feels bland or boring. First off, let's acknowledge that this is very much an opinion. If you're finding the game bland or boring, then you're finding it bland or boring. Simple as that. In my opinion, the game isn't bland and boring at all, but I do think there's ways you can play which would make it like that. Starfield is a huge game, with so many planets you can explore. You can spend hours upon hours upon hours just jumping from one planet to the next, wandering around the surface and scanning everything. But you shouldn't. I treat exploring the more empty planets and scanning them as a downtime activity, something to do when I want a bit of a break and to just chill for a short while. What I do most of the time are the missions. Starfield has some great missions, with characters I enjoy talking to, and revelations I don't always see coming. I've mostly been following storylines, and only occasionally taking breaks to go to an abandoned planet, work on my ship, or pick up a Radiant quest or two. And playing this way has made the game super fun. I have objectives, I have meaning behind what I'm doing, it is great. Obviously, once again, this is opinion based. If you decide for whatever reason that you don't like the characters, the story doesn't speak to you, or have some other reason that it doesn't click, then there's nothing I or anyone else can do to help there. Not everything is for everyone, and that's just the way it is. The final point I've got down on my valid list is my own personal complaint about the game, that being the rarity system and lack of true uniques. So in Starfield you can pick up 4 types of weapons and armour rarity. You've got your basic model, shown in grey with no bonus effects. You've then got rares, blue with 1 added effect, epics, 2 effects and purple, and finally the legendaries, orange and with a trio of random effects. You'll find these everywhere as you go. Obviously, you're generally going to be wanting to use epics and legendaries, as the more effects the better, but it's random what's going to drop for you when you play. You could end up with a ridiculously overpowered gun real early on, or just keep getting gear that doesn't fit your build or playstyle at all. And when it comes to uniques in the game, there don't appear to be any. By which I mean there's no truly unique feeling uniques. What you do get are pre-named weapons, normally rares, which are found in one set location with the same effect every time, and sometimes a slightly different skin than the standard model would have. However, you could end up getting the exact same effect on the same type of weapon as a completely random drop. Plus, the fact that the quote-unquote uniques tend to be rares rather than epics or legendaries means they generally aren't worth using, as chances are you'll find something much better through the powers of RNG. For me personally, this is my biggest complaint with the game. But guess what? I'm still loving Starfield. Despite this being a big issue for me, I still enjoy the game, and I'm learning to adapt to it, and just accept that when it comes to my builds and the like, I'll just recommend a base variant of a weapon, and then work with whatever random stuff people get given. Sure, it's not ideal, but it doesn't ruin the game for me. And I think this is a big thing to point out. While there are issues with the game that people will have, something not being perfect isn't a reason to think it's bad. Plenty of the people online complaining about elements may be coming across as negative, and as if they don't like the game. But it could be the opposite. Negativity bias means we're more likely to talk about the bad than we are the good. So maybe that person has a dozen things they love about the game, but they've decided to discuss the one negative they have. It's always worth keeping that in mind, and when you can, also talk about some of the positives, so people know that you have a balanced opinion. Alright, those were the points I've seen talked about which I consider valid, well worth taking into consideration. Now I'm going to discuss some of the not so valid points I've seen, and why I don't think they're fair criticism of the game, and should essentially just be ignored in the whole discussion. First up, we have that Starfield is a Bethesda game. For some people, they simply haven't enjoyed Bethesda games, and as this has many similarities, they also haven't enjoyed this. I do think it's a bit foolish that if you're someone who knows they don't like Bethesda games, you still decide to play Starfield. Like, really, what are you expecting? I know I don't gel well with FromSoft games, so I haven't played Armored Core 6. Sure, I like mech games, but I tried stuff from this developer before, and it's never clicked, so I'm not going to pick up a new game of theirs at launch. After a while I might give it a try, but there's no reason for me to be chomping at the bit. This kind of complaint is normally shown as, it's just Fallout in space, or it's just Skyrim in space, which is meant as a negative, but sounds pretty damn positive to me. I like Fallout and the Elder Scrolls. Sure, give me a space version, thank you very much, nom nom nom. Let me use FromSoft as an example again. If I described Armored Core as just Dark Souls with mechs, does that sound like a bad thing to you? For some, it's not a case of them disliking Bethesda games entirely. It's a case of them being mod addicts, who forget that the games don't launch with 100 different mods to put everyone in their underwear and expand various body parts to comical degrees. I do joke, but for some it is just the case that they don't like Bethesda base games, but enjoy the mods that come from them. This has always seemed a little strange to me, as I feel like you'd at least need to enjoy the game somewhat to care about mods for it existing, but I'm not a fan of playing with mods at all, so I don't feel I can fully step into the other person's shoes here. What I can say is that later on in the game's life cycle, there will be a lot more mods available. Just kind of a waiting game for now. The final "it's a Bethesda game" complaint is the one which is totally invalid, which is just the anti-Bethesda squad going around. Some people didn't like past Bethesda games. Fine, you're allowed to not like a game. But then, they've decided that Bethesda sucks, anything they ever make going forward sucks, and that hating something is all they need for their personality. Some people will genuinely just spend all their time trying to tear down something they're not a fan of, and I don't get it. You know what I don't like? Rom-coms. Romantic comedies. Not a fan. But this is probably my first time actually saying that to you, because I just don't make rom-coms a part of my life. If I don't enjoy something, I just don't engage with it. But for some, the hate train is all they care about, and they'd much rather spend their time talking about how much they hate something, rather than focus on the things in life that bring them joy. There's sadly a lot of anti-Bethesda people these days, and the anti-fan base is going to pop up whenever Bethesda is being talked about. But it's not just the people who hate the company who are angry. Oh no. For some, they are big fans of the company, but don't like that they're doing something new. Starfield is a new IP, and there's a fair few people out there who wish Bethesda just worked on Fallout or Elder Scrolls. I've already established that I like both of those franchises, but if the devs were forced to just go back and forth between those two worlds with nothing in between, I guarantee you things would get worse. Creativity needs variety to thrive, and that's what Starfield provides. I personally see it as a good thing that Bethesda is willing to not just bank on sequel after sequel, but give new things a try. Not everything they make is going to be a hit, but I'd much prefer a developer experiment than just go with the same thing over and over again. Yes, this does mean there's still some time to wait before The Elder Scrolls 6, but hey, the game will be better for that waiting. It takes a lot of time to make a truly great game, and I want the next Elder Scrolls to be truly great. Urging it to come sooner doesn't help, and tearing down any projects made along the way only go to harm the whole experience. We're a decent way through the video now, so I figure I can bring up the controversy with the game. Now, this is really, really big, so I hope you're sitting down. At the beginning of the game, when you make your character, on the very final screen, after you've decided how you want to look, chosen your backstory, picked optional traits and named the player character, there's then a button you can press if you want to choose your pronouns. You can pick he, him, she, her, or they, them. You get that choice. And that's it. That's the whole controversy. One single screen in the entire game where you just get that as an option. An option where it's not forced upon you, where you can quite easily miss it if you just hit accept again right after inputting your name, where it doesn't really change anything about your playthrough in a major way from there on out. This is what people are angry about. Look, someone going by they them pronouns is not a big deal. It's only bigots who want to discriminate that are kicking up a fuss, and even then, they only notice when it's pointed out in a clear way like this. If you don't bring up pronouns, then you can use they them all the time and people don't notice. And you know how I know? Because I've been doing it a bunch over the years, and nobody has ever pointed it out. Character builds I've made in the past have been of non-binary characters, and I've used they instead of he or she when talking about them, and nobody noticed. My most recent one was with the Wanderer, my very first Starfield character build. I used they every single time in the backstory, and there wasn't a single comment left about it, because it really is not a big deal. I've even done it throughout this video, referring to everyone as they rather than he or she, and chances are, you didn't even notice until I pointed it out. And that's because it's a stupid controversy. Let people pick their pronouns. It doesn't harm you in any way whatsoever. It's not being forced on you, it just exists. And if you want to complain that it's political or something, I think the major factions having a civil war, meetings about space law, and various other discussions around the whole lore of the game are way more political than a couple of seconds spent at the end of a character creator. If this truly is a big deal for you, then please leave. If you're so full of hatred that you just can't let people live their lives, and you have to try and tear others down just for being different from you, then you don't have a place here. I want my subscribers to be nice people, to be good people, to just have the basic human decency to respect others, and not judge based on gender, sexuality, race, or anything like that. I've always judged people based on what they do, how they treat others, things that actually make a real impact on the world around them. If someone is being mean, I'm not going to like that person. If someone's showing kindness, then I'm going to form a positive opinion of them. That's really as deep as it needs to be. The entire pronoun controversy in Starfield is just a tiny thing that doesn't matter, and won't affect the enjoyment of the game for any rational person. And speaking about tiny things that don't matter, you want to take a guess? No, get your mind out of the gutter. It's just that I've seen people online complaining about super minor features that they wanted in the game which aren't there. The main example I've seen of this is that you can't manually fly your ship onto a planet to land there. You need to open up the map and it goes for a load zone and landing sequence to do it instead. Would it be nice to be able to manually fly to the ground? Sure. Is it actually that big a deal? No. And for some, they do just bring this up as a this would have been nice to have sort of deal, and that's fine. There's lots of things it would have been nice to have in the game, but you should try not to judge a game based on what you wanted, but what is actually there. The people who have gone a little off the deep end are the ones who bring up super minor stuff like this and use it to claim that the entire game sucks. The entire game is not terrible because you can't awkwardly go through the landing procedure yourself. Even if that was in the game, it would be a fairly small feature of it, and not impact the overall game in a huge way. Super minor stuff like this shouldn't really be swaying you majorly one way or the other. And finally, we have an oldie but a goodie, the console wars. Now, I am glad to say that I've actually not seen too much of this in the comments, and I've actually seen a fair few people who own PlayStations being nice and respectful, saying that they hope the game will come to their platform in the future, or just accepting that they don't get to play the game, and it's a shame about that, but they're mature enough to focus on other things. Unfortunately though, not everyone is so mature, and there definitely are people out there who are just trying to trash talk the game because they can't play it. There's been talk of review bombing, there was that dumb petition a while back, there's just lots of stupid little stuff which is going to occur. I talked about this more in depth in my old Why Do People Hate Starfield video, but to blunt the edge of this a little bit, I would like to remind everyone that it's only a small percentage of the PlayStation player base who are actually trying to tear this game down. Most are being perfectly chill about it, so don't just go with the whole PlayStation fans are the problem, because that's a big overgeneralization and just makes the issue worse. As it stands, some people out there will just look down on the game because it's not on their platform. But that's not a critique of the game itself, so it shouldn't change your opinion on the actual content of the game. And that's it, all the big negative talking points I've been seeing online. I have now officially and publicly spoken about them, given my opinion, and I can move on. I'm already dreading the comments section of this video, so if you want to do a kind deed for the day, please do post something positive in the comments below. Can be something you like about Starfield, a nice encounter you had recently in the real world, or just a smiley face. Honestly, anything positive down there will make it much more bearable for me to check my comment section over the coming weeks, and I truly do appreciate it. Now, in terms of the channel, there's lots more to come, and there's going to be more of a positive focus from here on out, with me making the videos I'm really going to enjoy making. I'm already working on a Let's Play which should start next week, a couple of small guides to help you all out, and a whole bunch of builds, because I have a genuinely ridiculous number of builds in mind. I might end up making more builds for this game than I ever did for Fallout 4 or Skyrim. Plus, when there's DLC or patches, I'm planning on covering them too, so if you are looking for a Starfield channel to watch, please do subscribe and ding the bell. I've also got a Discord server where you can chat with the community and get notified of new uploads, link is in the description. We also have a brand new gift chat in there, so please share your best gifts with me, I would like to steal them. Leave a like and share this video if you enjoyed, and as always, thanks for watching. Sarge out.